Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this horror anthology movie review video as part of my current March 2024 series, where I'm taking a look at a number of horror anthologies from my collection for review, most of which are first time watches for me. So, today we're going to take a look at an interesting anthology film, and that's the animated horror anthology French film Fears of the Dark from 2007. So yeah, Fears of the Dark. You can tell this was a public library edition here at one time. They tried to blacken it out with a marker, but not too well. A little bit back there too, but I got this for like $2 if I'm being honest. So let's just go ahead and get into it. So, Fears of the Dark is a 2007 French black and white animated horror anthology film on the subject of fear, produced by Prima Lena Productions and written and directed by several notable comic book creators and graphic designers. It was premiered at the 2007 Roma Film Festival and released in France in February 2008. Throughout the film are a series of two-dimensional computer animated intervals written, designed, and directed by Pierre Desulio. Probably butchered that name. Um, so I'm just going to kind of go through the premise and each of the stories, who directed them. I'm not going to give the cast away because obviously they're voiceover actors. So in these intervals, the disembodied voice of a woman is heard. She expresses her fears through a monologue, making confessions from trivial anxiety, grotesque nightmares to crippling sadness. So that's sort of your, I guess if you want to say, your wraparound that happens in between each of the main, each of the different stories that this animated film has. It just it shows these shapes and sizes sort of moving in and out of the screen, and as it says, you hear this voice of a woman expressing her fears, which obviously fits into the premise of the movie Fears of the Dark. So, um, the first story, which is in traditional animation, is written and designed and directed by Christian Hinker. It's about, this is also kind of a wraparound. It's interesting because they call this the first story, but they kind of show more of this story through between the other stories, basically. So you've got the voice of the woman with the shapes on the screen as part of the wraparound, and then you've got this first story that they call it as part of the wraparound, where you have a sinister, sadistic old Marquis and his four vicious dogs, whom he restrains on leashes, trek through the countryside. One by one, the Marquis sets and releases each dog on a victim. So yeah, the four stories, basically the four actual stories. Um, it kind of, he releases a new one like throughout each, between each of them, basically throughout the movie. Um, so that's the first story, so to speak, or the wrapper. On the second story is a three-dimensional computer animated, written, designed, and directed story by Charles Burns. This is about an elderly, obese-looking man named Eric who awakens from his sleep to prepare for his medication and recounts a story in his youth. In a flashback, as an intelligent introvert with a passion for entomology, Eric discovers and captures a mysterious humanoid beetle. And then the story kind of goes on from there. The third story is a two-dimensional computer animated written by Romain Slocum and designed and directed by Marie Calou. This is a story that begins with a police investigation. The police investigating a murder. Um, Ayakawa Samoko is a meat girl who's receiving clinical treatment for her nightmares. Her doctor, being a scientist who continues to sedate her to experience them again. She begins attending school in rural Japan, where the students began brutally picking on and torturing her due to her being a newcomer and for living in an ancient house near a cemetery where a samurai named Hajime is buried. And then the fourth story is a traditional animated written by Jerry Kremoski and designed and directed by Lorenzo Matadi. This one's about an unarmed man who recounts his time as a young boy living in rural France, Having lost his uncle in a poaching trip, the boy confides in his friends, a mysterious orphan who claims that the uncle could have been mauled by a beast from the sky. The friend disappears, and a searching party is sent out to look for him. The boy encounters an inhumanly breathing creature of some kind and becomes convinced that the beast and his friend are somehow one entity of the same. And then the final and fifth story is written by Richard Maguire and Michael Purvis and designed and directed by Maguire. A burly mustached man breaks into a seemingly abandoned mansion to escape a blizzard. He uncovers a photo album of a woman, possibly the mistress of the house, who apparently tried living a normal life after her parents' passing. Due to unexpected circumstances, she began pushing away people by cutting their heads and faces out of the photos in the album. So yeah, I know that's a lot to digest there, but there's a lot in this movie for an animated horror anthology movie. But I had a good time with this. I have to say I enjoyed this. I'm not somebody that goes out of my way for animated movies, but I'm also not somebody that shies away from them, much like subtitles and black and white films, as I mentioned in my last review. I have another animated movie in my horror collection here. I think it's Extraordinary Tales, the Edgar Allan Poe stories. I haven't yet to watch that, but Fears of the Dark. Let's just go ahead and get into what I liked about it first, the pros. And you have to start with the drawing visuals. The animation is really well done throughout all these shorts. The black and white sketches really come to life on the screen, and as a result, these narratives and stories come to life because of the drawings, the graphic designs, the designs of these characters and these creatures in these stories. It's just very well done, and it's very visually pleasing. Even if you're not into black and white movies normally, this being more of a black and white comic book sketches come to life basically. There are some genuinely creepy and effective moments and visuals, despite it being animation. They do it in such a way that these stories are effectively dark. They're all very dark. There's no humor here, really. They're just they really hit on the fears that they're talking about, that they're dealing with, the themes of these individual stories, and because of the animation and the visuals, it is creepy. There are creepy moments in this, despite being animation. The look of the guy holding the dogs, the Marquis, I guess they call him, the Marquis, with the dogs that he has leashes, is quite creepy and effective looking in one of the wraparound, the first story. I call it the wraparound story. He just got a very evil, sadistic look that they really brought out through the drawing and the visuals there. So I had to bring that up. The use of the darkness in all of these stories is really incredibly effective and helps to create an atmosphere that has staying power throughout the movie. In an animated movie, the atmosphere is only going to work based on the music, the visuals, the drawings, and of course the narrative that's being told. And that's one thing this movie does in spades very effectively. Using darkness here and shadow and light, and it just does a fantastic job with that. There is a good variety of psychological fears and phobias here, so that each of the stories have their own unique flavor and narrative and themes, as to not make the overall movie redundant and predictable. So you have, one story is kind of about body horror, creatures, insects. One story is about possession and doing bad things as a result. One story is kind of a haunted house, sort of creepy story. Another one's about a creature feature, basically. So there's a nice variety here, and of course there's more harder underlying themes as well, which is another pro than just what you see on the screen. I guess the biggest pro I can give this movie is this is an anthology movie I'm already interested in watching again right away. I feel like I will like it more and more upon each rewatch. It has really good rewatchability, and I can tell that just from a first time watch. But part of it is I just want to rewatch it because, the first time you watch something like this, you're not sure what to expect, and I think I'll get a lot more out of it upon rewatch again and again and again. So yeah, definitely rewatchable. I think all four stories, plus the one wraparound, were all very well done in terms of animation, design, sound, directing, and editing. I would have to say the fifth story about um, the guy that goes into the mansion, the house, the mustached man who breaks into the abandoned mansion to escape a blizzard. That's probably my favorite one. I mean, I'm a fan of haunted house ghost kind of stories, and but that one's just so well done. That's where they use the darkness and the sound design so effectively in that one. So that would probably be my favorite. And then I would say my second favorite would probably be the third one, um, investigating the murder of this young girl, Samako, um, who's receiving treatment from the scientist, having to relive this nightmare again and again. I would say that's my second favorite. Then probably the second story about the obese man waking up and getting this humanoid discovering this humanoid beetle and capturing it. Um, then I would say the fourth story is probably next, where a man recounts his time as a young boy in rural France, having lost his uncle on a poaching trip, and this is where he has the friend, the mysterious orphan, and then ultimately he stumbles upon this friend disappears, and he just stumbles upon this inhumanly breathing creature who he figures to be the same friend, um, and yeah, so I guess that's my least favorite technically. Although my real least favorite is the other wraparound that I talked about, the one with the woman's voice and the shapes. I'll get into that now with my cons, but I wanted to give them a rundown of what stories I enjoyed the most. Or so five, three, two, four. Um, Wait a minute. Where's one? I guess I didn't include one. One is basically the other wraparound, which I really did enjoy about the guy with the four dogs. Um, so I'd probably go five, one, three, two, four if you want to throw that in. I'm calling it more of a wraparound. Getting into cons, it's not bloody or gory, despite there being blood, especially in actual red color in one particular sequence in the third story. Much more, this is much more of a psychological vibe, more about the idea of what you don't see and fears that people have. The thought that there's there is some on-screen violence, I will say, especially related to the dogs that the guy's holding back and some other areas. I didn't feel that the other wraparound. This is the one about the woman where you can't see her, you just hear her voices talking about fears with the shapes on the screen. That was intermingled throughout the movie. Um, wasn't all that effective to me. Now, I understand why it was there, because, like I said, it kind of fits into the title of the movie where she's discussing fears, everything from just anxiety, excuse me, anxiety all the way to really dark and sad fears that she has. I just think it could have been done in a more effective way. I just don't think that came across all that effectively executed in this movie. So that was probably my least favorite part of the whole movie. Um, like I said, I understand why it's there and is related to the stories, but for the most part, it's the least interesting part of the entire movie for me. None of these stories are really connected to the wraparounds. You've heard me talk about this with other horror anthology movies, and just because this is animated, I'm not gonna let it off the hook now. Other than the female monologue talking about fears, which, like I said, I really didn't care for. But from a narrative anthology standpoint, everything was pretty unrelated to each other. These four stories, they weren't really intertwined or tied to anything. It was all just sort of the two wraparounds and the four stories, as I call them, are all just sort of unrelated, but very interesting and cool written or drawing and graphically, visually pleasing things. But they had no tie to each other. If you know me, you know in my horror anthologies, I like having a wraparound story, a framing stories that ties everything together in a nice little bow, and this movie didn't have that. But other than that, though, guys, for the most part, I really enjoyed this. I'm glad to have it in my collection, especially for the few dollars I spent on it. I know it's not the prettiest DVD cases. I got it used, obviously, from a library, but I don't care about that, frankly. I'm going to rate this a 7.5 out of 10. I think it works a lot more than it doesn't. Again, largely because of the graphic designs, the visuals, the drawings, the animation. It's all phenomenal. I think the stories are interesting enough. Other than as I said, other than the the woman in the background that we hear with the shapes on the screen. I could have done without that, or they could have done it in a more effective way. But other than that, 7.5 out of 10 for Fears of the Dark from 2007, the French horror anthology movie. So go ahead and comment down below if you guys have seen this movie, what you think of it. Do you like it? Why or why not? Please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews for this series or any of my upcoming horror content in general, really throughout the rest of the year and into 2025. I have so many ideas to bring to life on my channel here, so stay tuned for that. But with that being said, this video is running kind of long, so I hope you guys are enjoying this review series, though. I would recommend checking out Fears of the Dark if you can find it. It is out there, I believe, on eBay, and I'm not sure. You could probably even stream it somewhere, maybe YouTube or something. I haven't checked into that. But with that being said, thank you for watching this review, and as always, stay scared. Bye.